Welcome to our video of the 5 classic books that you should be reading today. Now, with so many new novels jostling for position on our bookshelves, it's so easy to forget some of the earlier works that transformed the way people think, feel and believe about a certain subject. Some of these timeless books have even offered a fresh and eye-opening perspective on a topic that many of us took for granted. So we looked through our records and came up with what I think is a definitive list of 5 timeless classic books that you should be reading in 2021, 2022 and perhaps even beyond the year 3000. If there's a particular book we mentioned that you haven't experienced yet, click the link in the description box of this video and you'll be taken straight to Amazon. So let's get this party started. Here are the 5 classic books that you should be reading today. 3 of the books are by the late great E.M. Forster. The 2 others, well, they may come as something of a surprise. Keep watching. E.M. Forster borrows the title of his famous novel from Walt Whitman's poem Passage to India, celebrating the opening of the Suez Canal. Whitman uses the occasion to urge a new synthesis between Western technology and Eastern spiritualism, a passage to more than India, in a mood of exultant optimism. Apparently the title A Passage to India may signify a journey to India, but as a matter of fact, there's more to it than that. It's a journey of the mind in search of new ventures, a journey of the soul to understand thoroughly what India really is. Broadly, it's an attempt to make relations at personal, racial, cultural and religious levels. A Passage to India was written at a time when the end of the British colonial presence in India was becoming a very real possibility. The novel now stands in the canon of English literature as one of the truly great discussions of that colonial presence. But the novel also demonstrates how friendship attempts, often failing, to span the gap between the English colonizer and the Indian colonized. A Passage to India is significant in that it asks the very important question: can the English and Indian races be friends? The author's conclusion in what we read implies that it isn't possible at this time. Forster shows us the roadblocks which negatively impact interracial friendships through the experiences of Fielding and Aziz. Written as a precise mixture between a realistic and recognizable setting and a mystical tone, A Passage to India shows its author as both an excellent stylist as well as a perceptive and acute judge of human character. Well worth reading. A Room with a View. A Room with a View is E.M. Forster's vision of love struggling to assert itself in spite of the rigid class boundaries of Edwardian England. Visiting Florence with her prim and proper cousin Charlotte as a chaperone, Lucy Honeychurch meets the unconventional lower-class Mr. Emerson and his son George. Upon her return to England, Lucy becomes engaged to the supercilious Cecil Vyse, but she finds herself increasingly torn between the expectations of the world in which she moves and the passionate yearnings of her heart. More than a love story, A Room with a View is a penetrating social comedy and a brilliant study of contrasts, its values, social class and cultural perspectives, and the ingenuity of fate. At its heart, A Room with a View is a coming-of-age story about Lucy's entry into adulthood. Above all, perhaps, there's Forster's humane way of seeing the people he breathes life into. Even Cecil proves capable of rising, momentarily at least, above his priggishness. One senses compassion and kind wishes for the characters from the novel's narrator, even while that same narrator observes their flaws and weaknesses. I'm always in awe of Forster's ability to clearly observe, gently forgive and passionately love, all at the same time. Howard's End. Howard's End is a novel by E.M. Forster about social conventions, codes of conduct and relationships in turn-of-the-century England. A strong-willed and intelligent woman refuses to allow the pretensions of her husband's smug English family to ruin her life. Howard's End is considered by some to be Forster's masterpiece. The book is a novel of high quality, written with what appears to be a feminine brilliance of perception. The facts of the story are sometimes very difficult to reconcile with the people, but we are to remember that all over the world, men and women are worrying because they cannot develop as they're supposed to develop. Ultimately, Howard's End is the most optimistic expression of Foster's unique vision, a sensibility that transcends the temporal confines of his novel. Its richly drawn characters and the struggles they face to maintain human connection in an increasingly depersonalized society, to find a spiritual home in the world. These are still as current as they were at the beginning of the 20th century. A Daughter of the Samurai. A Daughter of the Samurai tells the true story of a samurai's daughter brought up in the strict traditions of feudal Japan, who was sent to America to meet her future husband, an engrossing, haunting tale that gives us insight into an almost forgotten age. Madame Sugimoto was born in Japan, not in the sunny southern part of the country which has given its name to the land of flowers, but in the northern province of Echigo, which is bleak and cold and so cut off from the rest of the country by mountains that in times past it had been considered fit only for political prisoners or exiles. Her father was a samurai with high ideals of what was expected of a samurai's family. His hopes were concentrated in his son until the son refused to marry the girl from whom he was destined and ran off to America. Etsu arrives in Cincinnati as a bright-eyed and observant 24-year-old, puzzled by the differences between the two cultures and alive to the contradictions, ironies and beauties of both. Her memoir, reprinted for the first time in decades, is an unforgettable story of a strong and determined woman. Great Expectations. In what may be Dickens' best novel, humble orphan Pip is apprenticed to the dirty work of the forge, but dares to dream of becoming a gentleman. And one day, under sudden and enigmatic circumstances, he finds himself in possession of great expectations. In this gripping tale of crime and guilt, revenge and reward, the compelling characters include Magwitch, the fearful and fearsome convict, Estella, whose beauty is excelled only by her haughtiness, and the embittered Miss Havisham, an eccentric, jilted bride. This is a true reflection of English society in the early part of the 19th century. Read and enjoy.